the last 5 years before you retire are likely the most important years in your entire financial journey. Make the right decision, and you may find yourself in a situation where you can spend twice as much each month in retirement than what you're planning on. But make just a few common mistakes, and you could jeopardize your entire retirement. I want to see you thrive in retirement. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you the 7 reasons why these last 5 years are so important for you. Okay, and the first one is looking at your investments, looking at your investment portfolio. You know, you now have a base, an investment base that can grow. But it's important that you look at that investment base properly and you know what the factors are that drive growth. Most people would say, I've got to pick great stocks, and that's really, really hard to do. But the good news is, in truth, asset allocation is much more important than your stock picking. So when people are surveyed, they generally say 75–80% of your investment success is based on the stocks that you pick in your portfolio. But the good news for us is multiple studies have been done, not just in the US stock market, but around the world, that show that it's your asset allocation that matters much more than your stock picking. There was a gentleman by the name of Brinson who did a study in the 80s, and what he showed was 94% of investor success is based on their asset allocation. What percent of their portfolio they have in stocks and what percent of their portfolio that they have in bonds. Now, the good news about asset allocation is that's a much easier place to succeed in, to get right for you, than stock selection. But it's not something that I think the average person should do on their own, because it's hard for you to judge how you're going to react in future market downturns, which is really what asset allocation is about, is coming up with, you know, what percent of your portfolio can be in stocks and what percent can be in bonds, where when the market goes down, you're going to be able to stay the course and you're not going to become what I call a forced seller in a down market. And the way you become a forced seller in the down market, if the angst, the mental pain from the market being down is so great that you can't stand it, and you sell at the lows just to cause that pain to stop. So none of what I'm going to share in today's video is financial advice, and I really do encourage you with all of this to work with a fee-only financial advisor, somebody that's a fiduciary to you 100% of the time, or an accountant, to get this right. And the nice thing is the asset allocation is something you can work with somebody on. It doesn't have to cost tens of thousands of dollars to get your asset allocation right. So number one is get your asset allocation right. Okay, the number 2 reason that the last 5 years is so important, we've got our investments hopefully growing for us, but the number 2 reason that it's important is, you know, a lot of us think that we're going to be able to work until we decide that we're going to retire. But unfortunately, 40% of people report that, you know, they were forced to retire before they turned 65. So just be aware of that. That might be a job issue, right? Technology continues to go and things continue to evolve. And unfortunately, there is ageism in corporate America. So that might be a job situation. That could be a health situation. That could be a personal situation. Maybe you have aging parents and you just can't balance it all anymore. And you want to spend time, you want to help out your aging parents, and you can't do it all. You can't do that and work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So the last 5 years are important because if we can, we want to be at our financial goal 5 years before we retire. So if something happens and the decision on when we retire gets out of our control, at least we're already there. You know, we have that foundation in place. Okay, number 3 is in the last 5 years, you can really start thinking about, and you should be doing this all along, but if you haven't yet, the last 5 years is a great time to do it, which is think through kind of the Stephen Covey thing, you know, begin with the end in mind. So think through in 5 years when you retire, in 7 years, whenever it is, where are you going to start withdrawing money from? Where's the cash for your living expenses going to come from? Which of those accounts? Because there's 3 basic accounts in the United States. There's the tax me later account, which would be like a traditional IRA, a traditional 401k. There's which you got to put money into that traditional account on a tax-free basis, on a before-tax basis, I should say. And when you take the money out, you're going to take that out, it's going to be taxable income. So I call that a tax me later account. Then there's a tax me never account, which is really misnamed because when you put the money in, this is a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, when you put the money in, you did not get the tax break on the way in, but then after that, it's tax me never because you're not taxed at the federal level on that. And then there's the tax me as I go, which is just your traditional money like in a bank account or something like that. So you want to have money in all 3 of those accounts for a reason that's going to tie into the next one, number 4, is the last 5 years you can start thinking about how you're going to minimize taxes in retirement. And this strategy is really looking at those 3 buckets that we talked about earlier, the tax me later, tax me never, and tax me as I go accounts, and asking yourself which accounts are you going to pull money out of to take advantage of the lower tax brackets in the United States. So here in the United States, we have 7 income tax brackets. I'm not an accountant, none of this is financial advice, but there's 7 brackets, and the 2 lowest brackets, you pay tax at the 10% level and the 12% level, which for most of us is a pretty low level. So most of us, if we could get our money out at that rate on a federal level, would be happy to do that. So a lot of people go the first couple years and they don't pay any money in taxes. But then they regret it later because that tax me later account has what's called required minimum distributions when we get older, where the government says, hey, you need to start, whether you need the money or not, you need to start withdrawing some of this money. And if that account is large, and yes, the initial percentages that you have to withdraw can be small, but if the accounts are large, it can take you above that 10% and that 12% bracket. And unfortunately, there's a big jump. It goes from 12% to 22 and 24%. There is no 13% tax bracket, 14%, etc. It goes from 12 to 22 and then 24. So you want to look at that, and this is something that an accountant or a fee-only financial advisor can help you plan. And for most people, it's worth thousands of dollars in savings from a tax standpoint, potentially tens of thousands of dollars or more, so it's worth it. Okay, number 5 is really important, and that is I encourage people to do what I call test driving your retirement budget. Try living on the budget that you think you're going to live on in retirement. If you're currently living on $10,000 a month and you think, hey, we could live easily on $7,000 a month, $8,000 a month, whatever the number is, well, maybe you could, or maybe you can't, right? None of us know until we do it. You don't want it to feel sacrificial, and you don't want it to feel sacrificial to you. And if you're married, you don't want it to feel sacrificial to your spouse or your life partner. So if you can test drive that for 3 months, 6 months, a year is even better, and just see, what does this feel like? You may say, you know what, I'd rather work an extra year or 2 rather than live on, if you, in this example, live on $7,000. Maybe you'd rather work an extra year and be able to live on $8,000 a month. And your expenses, your financial plan is going to be very sensitive to what your expenses are per month. So you may have a 97% likelihood of success at $7,000 a month, but you may be surprised. It may go down to like 80% likelihood of success at $8,000. So it's worth test driving your monthly expenses. Okay, speaking of, you and your spouse both agreeing, if you're married, on that test driving the budget, the next thing is, make sure you and your spouse are on the same page as to what retirement looks like. The last 5 years is a great time to have conversations like, where do we want to live? Do we want to stay here? Do we want to move somewhere else? What does that look like? You know, what do the expenses look like? How do we want to spend our time? How much time are we going to spend together? What about vacations? Are we going to take all of our vacations together? There's no right or wrong answer. You just want to be on the same page as your spouse. Okay, and then number 7, this is a great time to get excited about what you're going to spend your time doing in retirement. You know, what's that next passion going to be? Finding that next passion and getting ready for that can be a really fun thing to do, and you're much better off doing this 5 years before retirement rather than waiting until you get to retirement and thinking about it. Because, you know, retirement is great, but the truth is there's a valley it's a big adjustment. It's the biggest life adjustment many of us have had since maybe we graduated college, or we left our home with our parents and we went to college. This is a big life transition. And so anything we can do to prepare ahead of time for that transition, your future self is going to thank you. So thinking through how you're going to spend your time, so you can have as clear of a picture as possible as to what your future self looks like in retirement. If you haven't read the book yet, I highly recommend a book by Arthur Brooks. It's called From Strength to Strength. It'll help you think through what retirement can look like, what any life transition can look like as we're getting older. And that's why I made this video up here, which is finding your next passion. You know, how do you find your passion as we get older? Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.